Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today we got a pretty exciting video. We have got my old Kershaw chill that I've set up. I use this as a spare knife. You know, like if I'm flying somewhere, you know, I'll put this in my luggage, and that way I don't have to worry if you know, the airport's going to lose one of my 940s. So we've got my old one that I've set up, and then today, brand new right out of the box, one for my boy. My boy is 15 years old. His name's Vance. Great kid, absolutely great kid. Here next month he turns 16 years old and gets his driver's license, which means, you know, it's time for him to you know, get to work. You know, start you know, getting out there and finding out what career path might be a good one for him. And I've been having him help me out, you know, on different projects here and there. And the other day we were, can't remember if we were installing some new window panes or if we were installing some carpet in a place. And I told him, I said, well, hey, just, you know, cut that, whatever it was. And he said, well, Dad, I don't have a knife. And I thought, wow, he doesn't have a knife. Here it is. You know, a knife maker's son isn't carrying a knife every day. So I decided, you know, we went through my box of knives, and I found a couple of them that I thought he might like, that might fit his hands and everything. And, you know, we really weren't finding a whole lot. So then went over, I was getting something on my dresser, and I found, you know, my travel knife. And so I said, here, give this one a shot, and it fits his hand perfectly. He's quite a bit smaller than I am. I'm, you know, a normal size guy, 6 foot, 230 pounds, something like that, with, you know, normal size hands. And he's about 5'8", 150, 160 pounds, something like that, with his hands are quite a bit smaller than mine are, and not quite as beat up yet either. And these knives right here, I always thought that they were a little on the small side, but they fit his hand perfect. So this one didn't have the, if you'll notice, you know, it's got a flipper. But honestly, I don't really care for the flippers all that much. So I went ahead and took a carbide bit and drilled a hole and installed a thumb stud. And so now it's just, I mean, it's really close to being a perfect travel knife. You know, because you can pick these up for about 30 bucks. I think I ordered this one off of Walmart.com. I want to say it was $23, something like that. And then, you know, I tacked on a movie and a package of socks so that you got free shipping. And so, and it just got in today. The pocket clip is on the wrong, well, it's on the right side, but it's set up for tip down carry, whereas I like tip up carry. That way, the blade, the spine of the blade, lies on the seam of my jeans pocket. I guess I might as well show you that. And let's see, how am I gonna, because I can't see behind the camera to see if you are seeing. But anyways, so tip up. Now here, we'll grab the knife that we're talking about here. So we got, so there's the tip. So it sits in the pocket, tip up with the blade. That way the blade rides against the seam of your jeans. That way there's no possible way that thing can come open in your pocket. And then when you need to do some work for it, reach in deep, grab your thumb, and then the ring finger here. I sure hope you guys are going to be able to see this. Pull it out, hit the thumb stud, change your grip, and away you go. So anyway, so that's the way he's been carrying mine. In the evenings and the weekends, you know, since he's obviously still in high school and can't carry a knife there. So before I go ahead and set this one up for him to use, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a couple of things. And while I'm here, I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Bria, who runs Go Slow YO I think that's what it is. GOSLO.com, something like that. Anyway, she runs her own business, Go Slow, and does a lot of apparel, and made this really cool shirt. I mean, she makes an awful lot of cool stuff, but the really cool thing about this one is this is my friend Brett's Carmen Ghia. It's a pretty cool little car. And of course, Brett is like, you know, well, he's another 6 inches taller than I am. And his Ghia is lowered, and it's on air or hydraulics, I can't remember which. So it rides pretty dang low, and then he can set it down, and when he shuts it off, it goes almost all the way to the street. Anyway, a really cool car. So if you get a chance, check out her stuff. She's got some really cool t-shirts. Anyway, so like I said, there's 3 changes that I'm going to make to Vance's knife to turn it, you know, to set it up like mine. The first one is going to be the thumb stud. Okay, that way, one thing about these flippers that I don't particularly care for is without the thumb stud, if you miss-hit, see how that didn't go all the way out? If you miss that, you know, and you don't give it enough force to have it fully come out and the lock engage, let's say you hit it right there, guess what? Now there's nothing left. I mean, the flipper is inside the handle, so there's no thumb stud there to, you know, give you a spot to fully engage that knife. So what you end up doing is, you know, let's say you miss-hit it right there, you know, your hands are really cold, or they're oily or bloody, or you know, slimy. So if you're working on a car and your hands are covered in oil, if you're dressing out a deer and your hands are covered in blood, or if they're slimy, you know, you're fishing, gutting some fish, and it pops halfway open, now you're looking at either closing it and then retrying, or if it's almost all the way open, giving it a little flick to get the thing open, or reaching up with your other hand, or putting the point into whatever your work is, and then finish opening it like that. So that thumb stud is a really handy addition. Plus, you know, my hands are already used to working with a thumb stud, so I really like that, the addition of a thumb stud. The second thing, like I said, is the pocket clip. Right out of the box, it's set up for a tip-down carry. That way the blade can open up, you know, inside of the interior of your pocket. Chances of that happening are really, really slim. But when I was a kid, I was working. A friend of mine asked me to. He came back from Europe on a exchange student type of deal, and he brought back a switchblade with him. And so he knew I was into knives, and he asked me if I'd take a look at it and fix it up and sharpen it, because it was really beat up. I mean, it was beat up, it was rusted, hadn't seen any oil in the last decade at least, and the edge was pretty much non-existent. So, you know, I tuned took it all apart, cleaned it up, got all the rust off, oiled it, put it all back together again, and put a fresh edge on it. Well, that knife had I think I might have one over here. Yeah, this is one I picked up at a pawn shop. Different design and everything, but it still does have this little lock. Okay, so if, and I've never even carried this, so, okay, so if the lock is forward, you can't push the button and it won't come open. You pull the lock back, and then you hit the button, and then it pops out. And in this design, that button is also your lock, so you push the button again, and then it can close. Well, but that lock doesn't have a spring on it or anything. It's just kind of floating there. So I had the knife in my pocket. It didn't have a clip, so it was just deep in the pocket of my jeans. And I was going to give it to him that afternoon at school. Well, geometry class comes up. I walk in a geometry class, and I go to sit down in my seat, you know, for class, and I don't know what happened, whether my leg or my hip hit the desk, or as I was sitting down, my jeans moved across my, you know, upper thigh there. But somehow or other that button activated and that knife was sitting just like that inside my pocket. Well, it was just like that, with the tip pointed right at my, well, you know. So here I am, not supposed to have a knife in school, and I'm in geometry class, and the bell rang, and we're all expected to sit down and, you know, pay attention for class, right? Well, now I got a half-open knife with a spring that's still wanting to make it come open in my pocket. So now I'm trying to get down into my pants pocket without cutting myself, because I knew it was sharp. I just sharpened it. Trying to get my hand down into a pocket with an open blade in there and a spring trying to open it farther and trying to get it closed without anybody knowing what I was doing, because I probably would have got expelled for that. Ever since that day, I have never wanted to carry anything with a spring wanting to open a blade in my pocket. That includes automatics, the assisteds, any of those things. You know, I mean, I understand that they've come a long ways in the locks and the designs and everything. It's probably not going to happen, but in my head, I just go back to that moment, and I don't like anything with a spring like that. Anyway, so where was I? I forgot. Probably the pocket clip. So we're going to put the pocket clip from here over to here. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we are going to change the edge. Okay, so, and this is something I was really excited about when I opened up the box. Okay, so if you guys have seen my other videos about, I think the one I'm talking about the most is the ultimate sharpening system. And the ultimate sharpening system in my mind is a simple sharpening stone, be it, you know, a Norton crystalline coarse fine or a DMT 325. This is probably my favorite finisher. Norton fine India. If you want to get into the Japanese water stones, go ahead. Any of those. But sharpening by hand on a stone, why it's the ultimate sharpening system. This has got a factory fresh buffed edge. Okay, guarantee you this knife was sharpened on power equipment. Okay, it has not touched anything since it came out of the box. There's the box. I just threw the plastic away, pulled it out, took a look at it, thought, oh, this is really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of cut tests. Here's mine. So same exact knife. Kershaw, what was it called? The Chill, model 3410. This one I purchased a couple of years ago. This one I purchased a couple of days ago. On the reverse side, they both say made in China, or China, one of the two. They both say R.J. Martin design, right there and right there. And they both say 3410 and some sort of a symbol. On the new one you can see that. On the old one, that's where the screw for the thumb stud goes in. So they're the same exact knife. The only difference being is the edges that are on there. This has got a sharpened by hand on a DMT 325, and this is an edge created by you know, some sort of a power equipment. I would guess, judging by the sharpening marks, I'd say maybe a 300 grit belt, and then buffed with something that that dampened the scratch pattern from the belt, but didn't remove all the scratch marks. So I've got my little thing right here. It makes it easier for y'all to see small stuff. Put it right here. That's the last time pointing you up against a brick seemed to be about the best. That way the camera focused on the brick. Okay, so here is the factory edge. Now granted, it's nice and even. You know, the bevel width is nice and even the whole way. One thing I was noticing right there, you see that me get there. Let me grab a pencil. That's a dull pencil. Let's grab a sharp pencil. Okay. So this right here is your blade bevel, right? Okay. Then from here to here is your edge bevel. Alright? Now, you see that real thin strip of light going from the edge bevel, or the end of the edge bevel up? Okay, that's where the buffer rounded that edge off. Okay? If you sharpen it by hand, you wouldn't have that. Alright, you would have a nice triangular cross section, just like this pencil here, from here all the way to the very edge. That strip of light right there reflecting different, that's as the light comes down, instead of hitting a straight plane like this, it's hitting a plane, and then now I need that dull pencil again. I don't have one that's, it's hitting that straight plane, and then where the tip right there is rounded off, that's the light being reflected differently. Okay, so that's the factory edge. Now, you look at the edge that I put on. Now granted, this is, you know, to me this is kind of a junk knife, so I don't spend all that much time sharpening it. But you got your blade bevels, and then this one's actually got a micro bevel, which is what that that bright shininess is on there. But see how the edge bevel is not the same width. It's quite a bit wider down here. That's because the steel is thicker down here. It's wider here. I mean, I haven't really used this one a whole lot. Honestly, it's one of those, I picked it up because I was going someplace on a plane, and you know, I've used it, I don't know, off and on, here and there, but this knife has never seen any real work. You know, I mean, it's never cut drywall, it's never, you know, cut a lot of rope. You know, I mean, I've used it to open some boxes, and you know, whatever you do when you're traveling. I mean, it's never dressed out a deer. I don't believe it's ever gutted a fish. It just really hadn't seen a whole lot of work to it, which is why the finish is so nice. But I did reset the edge, and that's why I have the Norton crystalline out. Because as soon as I'm done shooting this video, I'm going to go ahead and reset the edge on that new one. So now for the cut tests. Let's put this back so we don't get it scratched up. Okay, first of all, let's do some sharpness tests. And that's really all this is. I mean, we're not going to go through a full cutting type test. Alright, so this is the new one. Pocket clips on the right side. Buffed edge. And it's popping hairs off my arm. It's shaving really nice. Okay? So now let's take mine. Go to a different patch that still has hair. That's why I'm doing this left-handed, because my left forearm's just about bald. See, look at there. It's popping hair just the same, right? Buffed edge versus nice crisp DMT 325 edge, right? They both shave hair. Now let's grab some paper. We got the local classifieds here. We'll go the buffed edge. Cuts paper pretty good. Kind of wants to make some curlies in there. Now my DMT 325 edge. Now if you'll notice, I think the buffed edge sounds a little bit quieter. Not that that means anything, but except for it's a more polished edge. The DMT 325, kind of wanting to make some curlies, but not a whole lot, right? Not that that really matters. here is where it matters, okay? I don't know about y'all, but I use a knife to work with, okay? So when I pull out a knife and make a cut, it generally means that I'm working with it, right? I don't typically pull out a knife to cut receipt paper. I don't typically pull out a knife to cut to do a push cut on a Kleenex. You know, I don't pull out a knife to admire the polish on the bevel, okay? When I need a knife, I need to cut something, okay? Work, whether it's cutting rope, drywall, or gutting a fish, dressing out a deer or a pig, or you know, a rabbit. Let's see, what else do I, opening up boxes, cutting cardboard. So when I get a knife, when I need a knife, I want that thing cutting like right now, okay, with as least amount of force on my hand is what I can get away with, okay, because that's the name of efficiency. So if you want to learn about edges, get yourself some of this right here. This is 3/4 inch manila rope from Home Depot. This is one lay of the rope. I'll show you the spool that it comes on. That spool right there. I don't know if there's boy, you can tell the shop's dusty. Ah, there we go. Turn you upside down. There you go. 3/4 inch by 150 foot. 329 pound braking strength or capacity. I think it probably is a little bit tougher than that. And back up in there it says manila rope. Okay, so 150 foot roll, right? That has got 3 strands in it. Okay, you take a chunk of that rope, say 2 foot of it or so, right? And then you take the individual strands out of it, and that's what you use for a cut testing media. All right, this rope will teach you so much about edges, it ain't even funny. All right, this right here is oh, it's probably got 50 foot off of it, and this is my second coil of this rope. All right, now typically speaking, each cut on these single lays is an 1/8 inch to 1/4 of an inch wide. That gives you kind of an idea about how much cut testing I've done on different steels, different heat treats, forged versus stock removal, different geometries, all that kind of stuff. This rope will teach you, man, I don't even know how to tell you how much this rope will teach you. But today, it is going to help us look at the difference between a polished edge and a crisp, or a polished machine edge and a crisp handmade edge. All right, so what we've got here is a bathroom scale. Okay, got a bathroom scale and a block of wood and a piece of this rope. That might not work either. What we're gonna do, I was hoping you'd be able to see that just from your normal spot. So let's move this out of the way, and we're gonna put you on top of the drill press. Bring the drill press table over here where it's flat. Sorry about this. I should have double checked this first. Okay, now I don't have my mirror, and that's as far forward as what the thing goes. Okay, yeah, you can see the scale there. Okay, so we have got the weight of my hand holding the rope on the chunk of 2x4. Okay, we're looking at 4 pounds or so right there. Okay, this is the factory fresh edge. We're going to put it at the corner here, check our weight at 4.5 pounds. This hand is just going to hold everything steady. Okay, this hand is going to put the amount of force required to cut through this rope. All right, so what do we have here? There's a knife. It's coming in, it's coming in, it's starting to bite a little bit. Okay, what was that, 27, 28 pounds, something like that? Remember, this knife, just a second ago, you saw me shave. I kind of got a cramp in my forearm there. You saw me take hair off my arm with this knife. Will it still do it? It's still taking hair off my arm. But 28 pounds of force. Let's do it again. Here's about 4.5 pounds. 4.5 pounds for my hand. Okay, I'm starting the pressure on the knife as I'm cutting. 24, 25 pounds. That's an insane amount of pressure to cut a little bitty piece of hemp rope, right? Now we'll take the DMT 325 grit edge. You can see the pocket clip is down here. Okay, so there's about our 4.5 pounds. Here's the edge. 22. We can do lighter than that. 16. 14. This isn't a knife that I work with all that much. We can try going with the polished edge and see if we can get it lighter. This is the problem with polished edges though. See that? We got 8-9 pounds of force, a sawing motion, and look what it did. Hardly anything. Now let's put 8-9 pounds worth of force on this one. There we are. That's the difference between a working edge and an edge to impress your buddies because it's all polished and, you know, will cut receipt paper without a sound. Okay? Night and day. And this is also a buffed factory edge. See? Nothing. Even though just a second ago, and it's still doing it. It's still taking hair off my arm, but you go to cut that rope and you got to put a huge amount of force on it and a huge amount of strokes to get the thing to cut. Whereas you take a nice factory crisp 325 edge by hand. There you go. Okay, so enough about edges. That's why I like the by hand nice crisp edges, right? Okay, so other things about this knife that I like. Okay, so you guys know that I really love my Benchmade 940, right, with the axis lock. In fact, I made a prototype completely from scratch. I really like it. There's a couple little bitty bugs that I have to work out before I can start making more of them. A lot of guys like making the liner locks, right? And up until this knife, I never really cared for liner locks at all. All right. You know, to close a liner lock, I mean, to open it is no big deal. This is a SOCOM Microtech, made in December of 2002 out of 154 cm. You know, not a bad knife. I picked this one up at the pawn shop for like 20 bucks or so, something like that. Even has Merry Christmas from First Rate Tree Service 2002. So apparently this company was giving this knife away as, you know, either to one of their employees or one of their customers, right? So opening the knife is not any different, okay? What I have a real big problem with these liner locks is closing the knife, all right? Now you won't see this here in a nice clean shop where we're, I don't know, probably 45 degrees in here, nice and warm, on level footing. My hands are, you know, fairly clean. I mean, they're dusty, but they're not bloody, they're not oily, they're not slimy, they're not muddy, they're not none of that. They're nice and clean hands in a dry environment on level footing. And I'm pretty fresh, you know. It's not like, you know, I've been under a mobile home replumbing it all day. that right there, this kind of circumstances, this doesn't really apply to. Okay? What I'm talking about is having to put a part of my body in the path of that blade closing. Okay, now I understand that you just put your thumb in there and get it started, right? Okay, well, like I said, when you're fresh and in someplace warm, level footing, you know, dry, clean hands and everything, that's one thing. You get out there in the field, you start working, let's say you're on a hillside, you're in 2 foot of snow and you just dropped an elk. You've been hiking all day long. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Sun's going down and a blizzard's coming in. Okay, you're cold, you're tired, your hands are numb, at least because you know you're dressing out an elk in a snowstorm. Okay, plus they're bloody, which means that they're slippery. All right, and you're not very fresh. Okay, that's when you make mistakes. Or let's say you're crawling around up underneath a mobile home replumbing the thing. You come to the last little bit of work. You've been working on this thing all day long. You're cold, you're tired, the light's not very good, you can't see very well, you can't really feel your hands. Okay, that's when design flaws pop up, and this one right here for liner locks for me is a big one. Okay, watch my hand as I go to, now I'm kind of twisting around here. Okay, so I activate that lock, right? Now I get it started with my index finger. Okay, now as I go to get my thumb out of the way, as that blade's closing, look what kind of arc it's making. Okay, so let's say you do get your thumb out of the way before the blade closes. All right, well that's good. You know, nobody got cut. Your fingers are still attached, right? Okay, what happens if, you know, you hit this a little bit too hard? Look where that blade's going. Yep, right into your thumbnail. Okay. So now let's say you get this part going, and then as this is coming up, you're still closing. See there? There goes the tip of your thumb. No kidding. Now you're on that hillside dressing that elk out, or you're up underneath that mobile home finishing up the job, or you're up on a roof, you know, cutting that last shingle to be able to get the roof done, or you're up in a tree you know, rigging up the branches for them to fall down. All right, now you're in a stressful situation. You're not on level ground. You're not in a controlled environment, and the tip of your thumb is cut off. That's not a very good way to end the day. You know, now instead of just finishing your work and going home, having dinner, and going to bed, now you got to finish up your work with the cut off thumb, put all your tools away, and then instead of going home to dinner, now you're going to the hospital to, you know, either get stitches or get the tip of your thumb put back on, or at the very least, or, you know, maybe just wrap it up in duct tape like I do half the time and keep on going, right? But now your work is compromised for the next, you know, 2 weeks because the tip of your thumb's gone. And you got to learn how to use the tip of your thumb with no tip of your thumb no more. Okay, that right there, I don't really like that about liner locks. This one, I do carry it in the breast pocket of my bibs. I have used it in cold weather, and I have not cut myself, but every single time I go to close that thing, it's not an instinctive close it, get it back into the pocket like it is with, you know, the Benchmade Axis lock, okay, or even a lockback. This knife right here comes really dang close to fixing all those problems, okay? Because while it is a flipper, let's see, we're going to use mine. Okay, while it is a flipper, and you do have this nice little flipper right here to activate the knife, which I don't really care for, now you have a built-in guard. Okay, that flipper comes around and makes your guard, right? Now you have something that if you have to make a really hard piercing cut, you got some protection right there for your fingertips. Now the best part about this, now when you come up in here to hit that liner, you have to, as long as you get your thumb up nice and tight up underneath that flipper, when you push it, nothing can happen. That flipper is now protecting the end of your thumb. Okay, so you get, not only is it protecting it from the blade coming down, it's protecting your thumb as if it was coming up, because if you come back up as you're closing it, it just locks it back in place. This is a way, way better design. This is something, and that's why this knife right here, even though it's very inexpensive, honestly, I haven't really worked with it enough to know if I like the steel that's in it. I mean, I'd be really surprised if this steel was, you know, something great. But for a $30 knife, I don't really expect it to be. That's why I've been carrying this knife as a travel knife now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, something like that, is because it's inexpensive and it's a great design. I mean, that takes out almost everything that I don't like about liner locks. So I'm probably going to end up making some of these. I'll make the handle a little bit bigger, you know, because it's, I mean, for the one that I start carrying as a prototype. This one right here, I've carried it off and on now for 6 months or so. Still not quite happy with it, but it's getting really close. So I'll do the same thing with this one right here. And now that my boy's going to be carrying one, you know, I'll pick his brain after he's carried it for a while and see what he thinks also. So I'll probably start making these sooner or later. So we went over the kind of sort of unboxing. How come I picked this knife up? I'm really excited to get have Vance start working. If he carries this one for, say, a year or so, and it's still in halfway decent shape, and more importantly, he hasn't lost it, I'll probably make him one. I mean, don't tell him that, but, you know, I'll probably make him one as a gift or something or other. Yeah, so we went over how excited I am for Vance to be carrying a knife finally. How I like that design, especially with a thumb stud. Oh, these thumb studs, you can pick them up at Jant's Supply House, knife making supply. They're these F16 knurled 2-groove thumb opener, and I believe they take a 5/64. Yeah, use a 5/64 carbide drill to get the hole, you know, through the spine. And then I want to say it's a number, or a 172 screw. The one that comes with it has got a is that screw right there. And so that screw doesn't really work all that well. That taper on there, you'd have to taper the back side of that hole. So I just use, I think this was it. Menards carries these, but they're a pan head screw, so they don't have that taper there. You will have to cut them down to the right size to fit in there, and then put a drop of Loctite, blue Loctite on there before you snug it up for the last time. And it'll stay there for a long, long time. I do like how thin it is, how light it is. I like the taper and everything of the blade. The profile to me looks pleasing. It's got a nice pointy point. The blade's not so wide that it binds in like turning cuts, like if you're peeling an apple or anything like that. It's a solid blade. It doesn't have any of that silly. I don't have one here, but one of the blades with, you know, it's got the holes cut out of it, you know, to make it kind of look cool. Those really are just. You ever tried making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a knife with holes in the blade? It just doesn't work all that well. You know, and the overall package and size and everything is really good, except for it's just, you know, a little bit on the small side overall for my hands. You know, I can get 4 fingers on it, but just barely. It's the rest of it when it's opening and closing. There's just not quite enough there for me to hold on to. So anyway, again, this is going over the Kershaw Chill 3410, designed by R.J. Martin. You know, why I like it, the changes that I'm going to make to Vance's, and going over some polished machine edges versus hand sharpened edges. I think that's about it. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you're interested in these knives, like I said, $23. It's actually quite a bit of knife for the amount of money, with a really good and really safe design for a liner lock. Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. And again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com, and we will see you next time.